The truth is like fire. Deny it, mock it, try to put it out, but it will still burn through everything in its path. They laughed at you, mocked you, called you crazy, delusional, paranoid. You were just talking nonsense, right? But now, look at them. Look at their faces when the very things they dismissed are now standing in front of them. Undeniable. The same reality they spat on is now their worst nightmare. Every event, every downfall, every shift, the universe is rubbing it in their faces. They hear your voice echoing in their minds, haunting them like a ghost they can't get rid of. They try to convince themselves it's all just a coincidence, but deep down, they know the truth. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the universe itself. Before we go deeper into this message, make sure you like and subscribe, not just for yourself, but for every other chosen one who needs to hear this. Every time you engage, you signal to YouTube that this message needs to spread, that more chosen ones need to wake up and recognize their power. So let's get this out to the right people. You thought you were alone. That was your mistake. You thought no one saw you, that your words vanished into thin air. But oh, they saw you, they heard you, and that's why they tried so hard to discredit you. Understand this. When you are chosen, your very presence is a threat. You don't have to fight. You don't have to argue. Your existence alone is enough to disturb their spirits. Because you were never just speaking your thoughts. You were channeling something higher, something unstoppable. The universe speaks through you, and no matter how much they try to silence you, they can't silence the truth. The power of being chosen isn't just a gift. It's a storm, a force that moves through the world, shaking the very ground your enemies stand on. That's why they're afraid of you. That's why they hate you. Because you see through them. You call things out before they even happen. You expose the things they want hidden. And now, what they feared most is happening. You were right. Every lie they told to bury you is crumbling. Every illusion they built to make themselves feel superior is breaking apart. And the worst part? It's happening without you lifting a finger. You see, when you're chosen, the universe fights for you. People think they're at war with you, but they're really at war with something much bigger. That's why they're losing. That's why their own energy is turning against them. They tried to come against you, but they were really picking a fight with destiny. And nobody wins against destiny. So don't ever question your light again. Don't ever doubt your path. The universe doesn't choose just anyone. There's a reason you see what others don't. There's a reason your mind works the way it does. There's a reason you don't fit in. You were never meant to. You were meant to stand apart, to be ahead, to be the warning before the storm. And now, the storm is here. Your enemies are restless because your truth won't let them sleep. They thought ignoring you would make the truth disappear, but it only made it hit harder. And as much as they wish they could go back in time and listen to you, it's too late. The universe has already made its move. Now they have to watch as everything they denied unfolds right before their eyes. Chosen one, you are not crazy. You are not paranoid. You are not alone. You were always the signal before the shift, the blueprint before the building, the whisper before the roar. And now, the world has no choice but to listen. So, are you ready to see exactly why they can't stop thinking about you? Why your words haunt them? Why the truth you spoke is now their biggest regret? Drop the number 77 in the comments if you feel the shift. If you know deep down that their realization is only beginning. And now, let's break it all down, step by step. But listen closely. If you are truly chosen, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end. This message isn't just words, it's confirmation. Let's get started. Number 1. Truth has no expiration date. It comes for them when they least expect it. A lie can run 1,000 miles, but the truth doesn't chase. It waits. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't knock. It kicks the door down. They thought they were safe. They thought ignoring you was enough to erase reality. They laughed at your words, mocked your wisdom, and treated your warnings like delusions. But the universe doesn't work on their ignorance. It moves on its own time, and that time is now. Everything they once dismissed, everything they arrogantly denied, is now staring them in the face. They're drowning in the very truth they refuse to acknowledge. And the worst part? They know you tried to tell them. Regret is a slow poison, and they're drinking every drop. They hear your voice, not because they want to, but because they can't escape it. The universe has a way of setting the record straight, and right now, it's playing back every moment they chose to ignore you. The same intuition they mocked is the same force that's haunting them now. Every sign they waved off, every gut feeling they suppressed, is hitting them all at once. They can't unsee it. They can't unfeel it. And you were never the fool. You were never crazy. You were never wrong. You were ahead. And that's what they hated the most. It wasn't just your words. It was the fact that you saw before anyone else did. You knew, and that scared them. But let's get one thing straight. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the system, the universal order, the unseen force that chose you, equipped you, and aligned things in your favor. Every time they tried to shut you down, they were throwing punches at the air, fighting a battle they had already lost before it began. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting the truth itself. And now the truth is rejecting them. Because truth doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask. It doesn't wait. It doesn't check if they're ready. It reveals itself when the time is right. And right now, the time is right. How does it feel, chosen one? How does it feel to know that the very people who dismissed you can't stop thinking about you? That your words didn't fade away like they thought they would? They linger, they echo, they weigh heavy on their minds. And let's be clear, this is only the beginning. They are just starting to understand what you were trying to tell them. But this realization, it's not a gentle awakening. It's a collision, a wrecking force that's dismantling every illusion they built to make themselves feel superior. And now they have no choice but to watch as reality unfolds, piece by piece, exactly as you said it would. This is why you can never doubt yourself again. This is why you can never question your light, your path, your wisdom, because the universe backs you. And when the universe aligns itself for someone, it doesn't just open doors, it builds entire roads where there were none before. You weren't speaking nonsense. You were delivering messages ahead of their time. And now that time has arrived. They underestimated you because they couldn't understand you. They dismissed you because they couldn't control you. But chosen ones don't seek validation. They don't need approval because they aren't operating at the same frequency as the rest of the world. So let them wrestle with their regrets. Let them sit with their disbelief. It's no longer your burden to prove anything. Your only job now is to keep walking in your truth, because truth doesn't expire. It only waits for the right moment to strike. And that moment is here. Number 2. Regret has no mute button. They can't escape the sound of their own foolishness. A wise person doesn't need to say, "I told you so." The truth does the talking, and regret does the rest. They remember. Oh, they remember. Every eye roll, every smirk, every whispered insult behind your back. They remember how they laughed when you spoke, how they dismissed your warnings like you were some kind of fool. They remember how sure they were, how arrogant, how untouchable they felt in their ignorance. And now, silence. The same mouths that mocked you are shut tight. The same voices that swore you didn't know what you were talking about have nothing left to say. Why? Because reality is doing all the speaking now. Every word you spoke, every insight you shared, every truth they denied, it's all unfolding right before their eyes. The people they trusted, the ones they defended, they're showing their true colors. They're revealing exactly what you warned them about. The situations they swore were set in stone, cracking, collapsing, falling apart. The decisions they once boasted about, leading them straight to disaster. And the best part? You don't have to lift a finger. You don't even have to say, "I told you so." You don't have to remind them. They already know. They feel it every time reality slaps them across the face. They see it every time another illusion shatters. They hear it in the silence of their own thoughts when they're left alone with nothing but regret. Because your words, they weren't just words. They were warnings. They were truths. They were the keys to doors they refused to open. And now, those doors are being shut in their faces. This is what happens when people fight against truth. Truth is patient. Truth doesn't argue. Truth doesn't beg to be believed. It simply waits. And when the time is right, it reveals itself in the most undeniable way possible. They spent all that time trying to discredit you, trying to shut you down, trying to act like you didn't know what you were talking about. But truth doesn't need approval. It only needs time. And time has run out. Now, the same people who treated you like a joke are the ones being laughed at by life itself. The same people who swore you were delusional are watching their own reality fall apart at the seams. And let's get one thing straight. This is just the beginning. Regret doesn't just hit once. It keeps coming. It lingers. It replays. It tortures. Because this isn't just about the truth. They could have avoided this. They could have listened. They could have opened their eyes. But instead, they mocked you. They made fun of the very wisdom that could have saved them. And now, they're drowning in the consequences. And you? You don't need to do a thing. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to waste another second trying to prove anything to anyone. Your proof is playing out in real time. And the best part? They know it. They know you were right. They know they should have listened. They know that every warning they ignored is now staring them in the face. But knowing the truth too late is a punishment in itself. Because regret is cruel. Regret doesn't come with a rewind button. Regret doesn't give second chances. Regret doesn't care how sorry they are. It just plays the same painful scene over and over, reminding them of the moment they had a choice and made the wrong one. So let them sit in it. Let them wrestle with their own thoughts. Let them try to silence the echoes of your voice, because the truth doesn't just haunt, it owns, and they belong to it now. Number 3, the bed they made is the one they must lie in. Now, there's nowhere to run. When the storm hits, you don't blame the one who warned you. You blame yourself for ignoring the thunder. You didn't just warn them, you gave them every opportunity to see the truth. Not once, not twice, but more times than they deserved. You pointed out the cracks while they were still admiring the fresh paint. You saw the collapse before the walls even started shaking. But instead of listening, they mocked you. They thought they knew better. They chose charm over character, deception over discernment, lust over loyalty, status over substance. They thought the shiny illusion would last forever. They thought the people they placed on pedestals were untouchable. They thought their world was built on something solid. Now, everything is falling apart. The job they swore would never fail, gone. The relationship they paraded around as unbreakable, in ruins. The trend they chased without thinking, now eating away at their peace. Every single thing they put their faith in is crumbling, and they can't even act surprised. They can't claim they didn't see it coming, because you told them. You told them exactly where it would lead. You gave them the truth, raw and unfiltered, not to hurt them, but to prepare them. And what did they do? They laughed, rolled their eyes, called you negative, paranoid, too cautious. They dismissed your wisdom as fear, when in reality, it was foresight. They thought they were being bold, while they were really just being blind. But here's the thing about choices. They come with consequences. And when you choose the lie over the truth, the consequence isn't just losing. It's losing everything you thought you had. Now, they sit in the ruins of their own decisions, wondering how it all went so wrong, wondering why nothing turned out the way they imagined, wondering why the very things they clung to have become their biggest burdens. And the worst part, they remember exactly what you said. Your words weren't background noise, they weren't forgotten, they were warnings, warnings they ignored. And now those warnings aren't just words, they're reality. Every time they look at the mess they're in, they hear your voice. Every time they replay the choices they made, they see the moments they could have chosen differently. But regret doesn't rewind time. Regret doesn't give second chances. Regret only reminds. And right now, it's screaming in their ears. And you don't have to say a word. You don't have to reach out. You don't have to prove anything. The proof is right in front of them. The proof is in their losses, in their disappointments, in the illusions they once defended, now breaking apart in their hands. They were so sure you were wrong, so convinced that they had it all figured out. But life has a way of humbling the arrogant, and right now, reality is teaching them the lesson they refuse to learn from you. Let them sit in it. Let them wrestle with their own choices. Let them try to escape the truth that now owns them. Because at the end of the day, this was the path they chose. You didn't lead them here. You didn't force them to believe in lies. They did that all on their own. And now they have to live with it. Number 4. The curtain has fallen. Now they stand in the ruins of their own delusion. Illusions don't die gracefully. They shatter, leaving nothing but dust and regret. They wanted the fantasy, the fairy tale, the dream that made them feel powerful, important, untouchable. They convinced themselves that the world would bend to their illusions, that the lie they lived would somehow become reality if they just ignored the cracks long enough. But illusions, they don't hold weight. They don't survive the storm. And now they're standing in the wreckage, looking for something solid. But there's nothing left. The people they trusted, gone. The promises they believed in, broken. The path they were so sure would take them somewhere great, a dead end. They thought they were invincible, thought they were different, thought that somehow they could outrun reality. But the truth doesn't wait forever. And now they finally see it. The warnings they ignored, the signs they brushed off, the gut feelings they pushed away, it's all crashing down at once. The same world they thought they controlled was never real to begin with. And now, there's no escaping the fact that they chose the lie. And the truth is choosing them. They look around, scrambling, panicking, trying to salvage something, anything from the wreckage. But illusions don't leave behind anything worth saving. You're untouched, because you saw it coming. You didn't fall for the empty words, the false promises, the glitter-covered deception. You knew that truth outlives the lie, that stability is never built on illusion, that if something requires blindness to believe in, it was never real to begin with. And now they see it too. But it's too late. Regret is creeping in, settling into their bones, reminding them with every breath that they did this to themselves. They can't blame anyone. They can't say they weren't warned, because you warned them. You told them that deception doesn't last, that the truth, no matter how buried, always rises, that the moment would come when the illusion would crumble, leaving them with nothing but the emptiness they tried to deny. They called you dramatic, called you paranoid, called you too much, and now they are the ones who feel too much regret, too much shame, too much weight pressing down as they realize they were never standing on solid ground. And the worst part? They don't even know where to go from here. When an illusion shatters, it doesn't leave a roadmap. There's no backup plan, no escape route, no cushion to soften the fall. They put all their faith in something that never had the power to hold them up. And now, they're free falling. And you don't have to say a word. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to waste a second proving anything, because reality is proving it for you. Let them sit in the wreckage. Let them pick up the pieces that will never fit back together. Let them wrestle with the fact that they are the architects of their own downfall. Because the truth doesn't just destroy illusions, it erases them. And once it's gone, there's no bringing it back. Number 5. Regret is a silent prison, and they built it themselves. The worst pain isn't loss. It's knowing you could have prevented it, but didn't. They know. Oh, they know. And that's the part that eats them alive. Not just the pain of their downfall, not just the weight of everything crashing down around them, but the unbearable realization that this didn't have to happen, that they could have avoided it, that they were warned, that they were given a way out before the storm hit. But they laughed in your face and kept walking toward the fire. They thought they were being smart, thought they were being bold, thought they were in control, but they were never in control. They were just blind. And now they see. And what do they see? Themselves. The arrogance, the pride, the way they dismissed your words like they were worthless, treating you as if you were the fool. They see it all now. Every moment they scoffed at your wisdom. Every time they waved off your insight. Every warning they ignored is now playing back in their mind like a horror movie with no pause button. And the worst part, they can't run from it. Because regret isn't loud. Regret doesn't scream. Regret whispers. And whispers, they never stop. You weren't trying to control them. You weren't trying to force them. You were trying to save them. And now they carry the weight of that truth in silence. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to say, "You were right." You already know. You can feel it. The tension in the air when they see you. The way their energy shifts when your name is mentioned. The way their eyes betray them, because they can't hide from what they did. It burns them. It burns them to see you standing strong, untouched, unshaken, unbothered by the disaster that has consumed them. And that is what hurts the most. Not just that they were wrong, not just that you were right, but the fact that you survived what destroyed them. They remember the way they spoke to you, the way they looked at you with arrogance, the way they dismissed you with certainty, like you were the one who didn't understand. And now, that certainty is gone. Now, they are left with only shame. Shame for how they treated you. Shame for not listening. Shame for realizing too late that you were never the enemy. Because you didn't fall with them. You didn't chase the lie. You didn't get caught in the illusion. You saw the destruction coming and you moved accordingly. And now they have to live with the pain of knowing that you tried to save them, and they spit in your face for it. Let them sit in it. Let them wrestle with it. Let them deal with the wreckage they created with their own hands. Because the truth, regret is a prison with no key, and they just locked themselves inside. Number 6. Their silence screams the truth, louder than they ever could. Regret doesn't always come with words. Sometimes it comes with silence, the kind that weighs heavier than any apology ever could. You don't need them to say it. You don't need to hear the words, "You were right." Their actions say it for them. The hesitation when your name comes up. The quick glance away when you walk into the room. The awkward silence in conversations that brush too close to the truth. They think they're hiding it. They think if they just avoid the topic, if they just pretend it never happened, it'll go away. But truth doesn't disappear just because they refuse to speak it. And you don't need their words, because you can feel it. You can feel it in the way they linger too long on your words now, the way they hesitate before dismissing you, as if they know they can't afford to be wrong again, the way they listen, not out of respect, but out of fear, fear of repeating their mistakes. And it haunts them, because they could have had peace, they could have had wisdom, they could have had protection, but instead they have regret. And regret is heavy, a weight that doesn't lift, a shadow that doesn't fade, a voice that doesn't stop whispering in the quiet of their mind. But you carry nothing, because you let them make their choice, and now they have to live with it. You were the first to see it, the first to say it, the first to know the truth before anyone else dared to acknowledge it. And what did they do? They dismissed you, called you extreme, called you paranoid, called you crazy. They laughed at your words, scoffed at your insight, mocked you as if you were the fool. You weren't qualified. You weren't credible. You weren't someone they needed to take seriously. And now they're paying the price for their arrogance. They thought they had it all figured out, thought they were above your warnings, thought they could move through life with blind confidence and still land on their feet. But life doesn't work that way. Truth is patient. Truth is silent. Truth waits in the background, watching, knowing that when the time is right, it won't need to be explained. It will simply be seen. And right now, it's being seen. Their mistakes are showing. Their pride is breaking. Their false confidence has crumbled. And they know they should have listened. They know they should have thought twice before dismissing you. They know that every decision they made against you was really a decision against truth itself. But there's no going back now. They can't undo the words they spoke. They can't erase the way they mocked you. They can't pretend they didn't choose this outcome. And that's what stings the most. Not just that they were wrong, not just that you were right, but that they had the chance to avoid this. They had the chance to stand beside you instead of against you. They had the chance to choose wisdom over ignorance, and they threw it away. Now they sit in their regret. And you rise in your truth. Because in the end, truth doesn't need validation. it doesn't need approval. It only needs time. And time has proven everything. Number 7. First, they mock. Then, they mimic. The same truth they laughed at yesterday is the wisdom they praise today. But don't expect them to give you credit. Pride won't let them. Now the very words that got you laughed at, dismissed and ridiculed are suddenly groundbreaking wisdom. The very things you were mocked for are now being repeated by the trusted voices, the leaders, professionals and experts they worshipped while calling you crazy. And now they listen. Now they nod in agreement. Now they repost, share and quote. Now they act like it's some great revelation. But where was that energy when it was you speaking? Where was that respect when you were the first to call it out? When you were the one seeing past the illusion before it was safe to acknowledge? When you stood alone in your truth while they laughed in your face? That's how the cycle works. First, they ignore you. They roll their eyes. They pretend they didn't hear you. They dismiss your words like they carry no weight, because in their mind, truth only matters when it comes from people they already trust. Then they mock you, they laugh, call you delusional, label you too much, too deep, too dramatic. They make you a joke so they don't have to take you seriously, because if they do, it means confronting something they aren't ready to face. Then the laughter stops. Reality starts proving you right, and suddenly they start paying attention. Suddenly they start seeing what you saw, but by then it's too late. And finally, they pretend they knew all along. They repeat the exact same things they once called you crazy for, but with a twist. They dress it up, reword it, make it sound polished, just enough to make it seem like they were the ones who uncovered the truth. Because to admit you were right would mean admitting they were blind. And their pride, it won't let them. They can't say, "I should have listened to you." They can't admit, "I ignored the truth when it was right in front of me." So instead, they rewrite history. Instead, they claim the truth as if it was theirs all along. Instead, they try to erase the fact that you were the first to see it. But deep down, they know. Every time they repeat the very wisdom they mocked you for, they feel it. Every time they share the same insight they once dismissed, they remember. Every time they hear someone else say what you already told them, they know. They just hope you don't remind them. They hope you don't call it out. They hope you don't notice that they've switched sides. They hope you don't remember how they treated you when it wasn't popular to believe in the truth. But you don't have to say a word. The truth speaks for itself. The truth was never meant to be validated by them. The truth was never dependent on their approval. The truth existed before they were ready to see it. And now that they do, it's too late to act like they knew all along. Because no matter how much they pretend, no matter how much they try to rewrite the past, they'll always remember who spoke first. Number 8. Wisdom needs no applause. Its power is in being proven right. A wise person doesn't seek validation because truth doesn't need an audience to exist. You don't need their validation. You don't need their credit. You don't need them to say it out loud, because you already won. And not by arguing, not by forcing them to see, not by begging for recognition. You won because truth speaks for itself. You don't have to chase credit, because those who once ridiculed you are now quietly taking notes. They won't say it directly. They won't give you the satisfaction of hearing them admit it, but you can feel it. They hesitate now. They listen longer. They second-guess themselves before dismissing you, because deep down, they know exactly where they heard it first. They remember every time they rolled their eyes, every time they laughed, every time they dismissed your words as nonsense. And yet, here they are, studying the very wisdom they once mocked. That is the true power of wisdom. It doesn't need force. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need to be proven in the moment. Wisdom waits. And when the time comes, when the illusion fades, when reality crashes down around them, they return to the words they once rejected. The same people who mocked you are now quietly trying to piece together the things you already knew. They speak with less arrogance now. They listen with a little more hesitation. They move with a little more caution, because they've seen firsthand what happens when they ignore truth. And now, they watch you. They watch how you never wavered. They watch how you never needed outside approval to believe what you knew. They watch how, even without their validation, you thrived. And that burns them more than anything, because it means you never needed them to begin with. You never needed their acceptance. You never needed their approval. You never needed them to recognize your wisdom in order for it to be real. And that's the part they can't stand, because they needed you. They needed your insight. They needed your clarity. They needed your warnings. But by the time they realized it, it was too late. That's why they act like nothing happened. That's why they pretend they always knew. That's why they act like their newfound wisdom appeared out of nowhere, as if they didn't spend years ignoring the very truth they now cling to. They hope you don't remember. They hope you don't bring up how they treated you. They hope you don't remind them of how easily they dismissed you. They hope you don't realize that they were the ones who needed to catch up, not you. But you don't have to say a word, because wisdom doesn't scream. Wisdom doesn't demand attention. Wisdom doesn't need an apology. Wisdom waits. And when the dust settles, when the noise dies down, when the people who laughed are now the ones searching for answers, wisdom stands tall, unchanged, untouched, and undeniable. That is your power. Not in proving yourself, not in getting them to admit you were right, not in forcing them to see what they refused to acknowledge before. Your power is in the fact that you always knew, and now, so do they. Number 9. Chosen one. Look at your life. Now, then look at what's waiting for you. The path of the chosen was never meant to be walked alone. Power is amplified when the right minds connect. Hello, chosen one. Look at your life now. Look at how far you've come. Look at the wisdom you've gained, the battles you've survived, the strength you never even knew you had until life forced you to find it. You weren't meant to fit in. You weren't meant to be understood by the masses. But that doesn't mean you were meant to walk this path alone. You've always known you were different. That's why they never accepted you. That's why they questioned you, doubted you, tried to make you feel like an outsider in your own existence. But here's the truth. You weren't an outsider. You were ahead. And now it's time to connect with the ones who are on your level. Picture this. Weekly group calls with 450 plus chosen ones. Not just ordinary people, but individuals who see beyond the illusion, who have walked through the fire and come out unbreakable. These aren't just conversations. They're blueprints for navigating a world that was never designed for those who know too much. Every call recorded, available anytime, because enlightenment doesn't wait, and neither should you. And then there's the private Discord. Not just active, alive. A space where chosen ones gather, share insights, unlock breakthroughs, and exchange knowledge that the world isn't ready for. Conversations charged with energy, depth, and the kind of truth that most people will never even get close to. But let's talk about the real question some of you have been thinking. What about love? What about meeting someone who understands you on a soul level, who doesn't flinch at the depth of your mind or the power of your presence? Welcome to Chosen Singles. This isn't some cheap dating pool filled with empty conversations and forced small talk. This is where soulmates meet under cosmic alignments. And if that's not enough, Star Chamber members step even deeper into the truth. Exclusive interviews with bona fide, targeted individuals, people who have faced the darkest trials and survived to tell the tale. People who have been through spiritual warfare, psychological battles, and real-world persecution, and emerged stronger. This is the kind of knowledge they don't want you to have. The kind of discussions that shake the very foundations of illusion. And of course, the video specials. The ones too raw, too bold, too dangerous for YouTube. This isn't just a community. This is a revolution. A revolution of soul and spirit. A movement where the ones who were once isolated, doubted and mocked now stand together, stronger than ever. Look at your life now. Look at what's waiting for you. The choice is yours. Number 10. The power of your impact. They follow you in silence. They won't say it out loud, but their actions expose them. The ones who dismissed you are now the ones learning from you. They won't admit it. They won't come to you and say, "I should have listened." They won't let the words leave their lips, because that would mean facing the truth that they ignored, the truth that cost them, the truth that you saw long before they did. But their actions betray them. They mimic your words, pretending the thoughts are their own. They repeat your insights, dressing them up as if they discovered them on their own. They try to piece together the wisdom they once mocked, hoping that by some miracle they can still grasp what they missed. But it's too late. Because wisdom isn't just information. Wisdom is sight. The ability to see beyond the illusion, to read between the lines, to understand things before they happen. And they have already proven they lack the sight. They could have learned. They could have listened. They could have opened their minds when the truth was offered freely. Instead, they threw it away. And now, the very person they dismissed has become their guide. You are their silent teacher. They won't come to you for answers, but they watch you. They study you because they no longer trust themselves. Every decision they made, the ones they swore were right, the ones they defended with arrogance, the ones they laughed at you for questioning, led them nowhere. And now they look to you. Not because they want to, not because they're ready to admit they were wrong, but because you're the only one who didn't get lost. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to call them out. You don't need to demand recognition. Because they already know. They wouldn't be watching if they didn't. They wouldn't be studying you in silence if they didn't realize that somewhere along the way they got it wrong. And now they're hoping to learn without admitting they were ever your student. But that's the thing about wisdom. It doesn't work that way. Wisdom isn't something you can steal. It isn't something you can fake. It isn't something you can copy without understanding. They can repeat your words all they want, but they will never carry the same weight. Because the power wasn't in the words, it was in the vision behind them. And that vision, that can't be imitated. So let them watch. Let them study. Let them try to follow in silence, pretending they always knew. Because at the end of the day, the only reason they're looking to you now is because they finally see what you saw all along. And that is the power of your impact. Number 11. the power of consistency. They see it, even if they won't admit it. You don't have to shout. You don't have to prove anything. Consistency is the loudest statement of all. They won't clap for you. They won't congratulate you. They won't acknowledge how far you've come. But that doesn't matter, because while they stay silent, they are learning from you in secret. You were never meant to be validated by them anyway. You never needed their approval. You never needed their praise. And you never once changed your path to fit their expectations. While they ran after shortcuts, chasing trends, grasping at anything that promised instant results, you remained steady, grounded, moving with purpose, not desperation. They mocked you for it, called you too slow, too cautious, too disciplined. But look at them now. The ones who took the easy road, burned out. The ones who refused to commit, lost. The ones who thought they had found a faster way, now realizing the cost. Because while they were cutting corners, you were building something real, something unshakable, something they can no longer ignore. They don't want to admit it, but they see it. They see how you've kept your stability while they fell apart. They see how your consistency has set you apart. They see that while they spent their time chasing, grabbing, forcing, you never had to chase anything, because real power attracts. And now people are noticing. They're watching the way you move, the way you never fold under pressure, the way you stand firm in what you know, no matter how loud the noise around you gets. And the ones who mocked you before, now they're questioning themselves, because every move they made, the shortcuts, the easy routes, the desperate attempts to skip the process, it led them nowhere. And yet, the very person they once dismissed, still standing, still rising, still unshaken. That is the power of consistency. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg. It doesn't seek validation. It just wins. Not overnight, not all at once, but in a way that cannot be denied. So let them watch, let them learn, let them try to figure out how you did it. Because the truth, you did nothing except stay true to the path they were too impatient to walk. And that is what separates the chosen from the crowd. Number 12. The question they must ask themselves, and the answer they can't escape. Nothing exposes false strength like watching the one they doubted stand taller than ever. They see it now, the difference between your foundation and their instability. They see how you've remained steady, unshaken, growing, thriving. And the best part, you never had to prove anything. You never had to beg them to understand. You never had to waste your energy trying to convince them of what time was always going to reveal, because time speaks for itself. And now, they can't deny it anymore. They counted on your failure. They expected you to crumble. They assumed that the moment you walked away, you would fall apart. Because, in their mind, you needed them. You needed their approval. You needed their validation. You needed their presence to survive. But what happened? You didn't just survive, you thrived. And that terrifies them, because now they have to ask themselves the question they've been avoiding, the question that eats away at their pride, the question they don't want to answer because they already know the truth. What if I was wrong? What if you were never weak? What if they were never your foundation? What if they weren't the ones holding you up, but the ones holding you back? That's what they don't want to admit. Because the moment they do, they have to face an even harsher reality. It was never you who needed them. It was them who needed you. They needed your strength to feel powerful. They needed your energy to feed their own. They needed to keep you doubting yourself, because the second you realized who you really were, they lost all control. And now they are watching the proof unfold in real time. They are watching you stand tall while they scramble to hold their own lives together. They are watching you move forward while they're stuck in the same cycles they swore they'd never fall into. They are watching you thrive without them, something they never thought was possible, because in their mind you were never supposed to outgrow them. But you did. And now they sit with the question, the one they can't escape, the one they try to silence, the one that lingers in the back of their mind every time they see you standing in your power. What if I was wrong? But the answer is already written in your success. Number 13, the truth reveals itself, and they can't escape it. At first they laugh, then they copy, then they wish they had listened. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to face the truth staring them in the face, that while they stayed the same, you evolved. While they wasted time watching, waiting, hoping for you to break, you built. You built something unshakable, untouchable, undeniable, and now they are the ones struggling with the fact that they were never your source of power, struggling with the realization that you don't miss them, struggling with the truth that you never looked back. You weren't supposed to rise higher. You weren't supposed to thrive without them. You weren't supposed to leave them behind, but you did. And the higher you climb, the smaller they feel. Now, they're the ones wondering if they should have stayed close to you, if maybe, just maybe, they should have listened instead of laughed, if they should have followed instead of fought against you. But that's not your concern, because you never needed them, and you never will. You don't need their recognition. You don't need their validation. You don't need their apologies. But you see what's happening. The same ones who mocked your approach, now adopting it. The ones who laughed at your discipline, intuition, mindset, now trying to imitate it. They swore you were doing too much, called you obsessive, said your methods were extreme, and yet now they're suddenly moving in silence, suddenly trying to sharpen their intuition, suddenly following the very path they once ridiculed. You don't need them to say it out loud, because their actions expose them. They once criticized your work ethic. Now they're trying to match it. They once rolled their eyes at your intuition. Now they're desperately trying to develop their own. They once swore your mindset wouldn't get you far. Now they're studying the very same principles they laughed at. They always saw your power. They just didn't want to admit that they were too blind to understand it. At first, it was easier to mock you than to learn from you, easier to dismiss you than to accept that you were ahead. But time is a ruthless teacher, and now they are forced to acknowledge what they once denied. Number 14. They wanted to prove you wrong, but they only proved you right. They set out to discredit you, to make a fool of you, to show the world you didn't know what you were talking about. But in the end, the only ones exposed were them. They wanted to prove you wrong, not just quietly, publicly. They wanted to make a spectacle out of you, to turn you into the example of what not to be. They wanted people to laugh at you, dismiss you, ignore you, because if they could make you look foolish, then maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't have to face the fact that you saw something they couldn't. But life has a way of humbling the arrogant. They put so much energy into proving you wrong that they didn't see what was coming for them. They didn't realize that truth doesn't need defending, that no matter how much they tried to twist the narrative, reality would always set things straight. And now they stand in the ruins of their own arrogance. because the very things they swore would never happen, happened. The very choices they mocked you for avoiding destroyed them. The very path they told you was foolish turned out to be the only one that led anywhere. And you didn't have to do a thing. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to fight for your truth. You didn't have to waste your breath trying to convince people who were never ready to see. Because the truth always proves itself. They thought they had it all figured out, thought they were smarter, faster, untouchable. They moved with pride, not wisdom. They made decisions based on what looked good in the moment, not what would last in the long run. And now they regret it. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to say it out loud. But you can feel it, in the way they avoid your eyes, in the way they hesitate before dismissing you now, in the way they suddenly move with less arrogance, more uncertainty, because deep down they know they set out to prove you wrong, but in the end they only proved you right. And that is a burden they will carry far longer than any words you could ever say. And now, here we are. The truth has settled, the illusions have crumbled, and reality has made its final move. They wanted to prove you wrong, but life proved you right. And the best part? You never had to force it. Wisdom speaks for itself. If this message resonated with you, show your presence. Like, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments if you stand firm in your truth. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this with another chosen one who needs this confirmation. Because the more we rise, the louder our truth becomes. Until next time.